Hello, I'm Oral Gibbs, and welcome to Oral Gibbs Live. I have a very, very interesting guest. We're going to have quite a great conversation. You'll find out about my guest after this from my sponsors. Wynwood Islands Bank in Phillipsburg, in Cul-de-Sac, and in Simpson Bay. Wynwood Islands Bank for all your banking needs, and GEBE, local water and electricity company. GEBE, serving St. Martin for over 6 decades. And I'm Oral Gibbs, and with me, well, before I tell you about my guest, remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can subscribe and you'll be the first to know when we do a show, whether it's live, uploaded, wherever. Please subscribe and you'll know right away. Or you'll listen to us on Hot 99.9 FM radio station right here in beautiful St. Martin. Or you can also see us on TV Carib and also Facebook. My guest, the one and only, the man himself, Mr. Emilio Kalmera. How are you doing, sir?
Thanks, Arvel, for having me.
It's good to have you here, man. This was quite an interesting thing because I did an interview with you and the software just went crazy, so we had to do it over, right?
Yeah, you have to do it over the second time. But you know what they say, the first time is always the best.
But the thing is, I've been in broadcasting for since 1978. This is the first time I felt so bad. But I want to thank you for coming back.
No problem, man.
So here we are, right?
Yeah.
So how are things going with you so far?
Well, things for me is good. Despite what's happening out there in the world. And I always tell people, if you plan for the worst, and you always know good times, and so some people it's difficult to plan for the worst because they have, the same routine and they're only working to survive and that type of thing. So the norm you can't see from my perspective when I say things are not bad.
Yeah. But when you plan for the worst, people think that you're kind of like
you're
crazy,
loony. Yeah, no, I get it. But for me, for example, if I get like a bonus or whatever, I treat it as if I didn't get it. I put it aside because they say in times of famine, in times of plentiful, you prepare for famine.
Yeah.
So I always had that philosophy. So my budget kind of stays constant when it comes to spending. Any excess goes into a pool to either invest or to in bad times you have that buffer. So that's just a routine that I do. I take the emotions out of it. I think from time you start getting emotional when it comes to managing money and finances or whatever, you're going to have a problem.
I have to agree with you.
Yeah.
I remember Hurricane Irma in 2017. A lot of people didn't plan.
No.
I had everything. Everything that you could believe, everything that you could think about.
I believe that.
I had.
I believe
I
that.
even had reserve fuel and everything.
Yeah.
And then I saw people struggling.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's so simple. I mean, we know there's always like cycle. Everything is cycles. You always have good times, you have bad times, and so you always have these seasons. Naturally, you have 4 seasons in natural realm.
Right.
In our realm, we also have seasons. Good times, bad times, pandemics, and so forth. So in that sense, I always look at the fact that if you always have something aside for a buffer or a rainy day, they call it. It's old time teaching. My grandmother taught me this like donkey years ago. I always put aside something for rainy days.
Yeah.
So it's just something I built into my lifestyle, and it becomes part of my lifestyle, I think.
It's also there in the Bible too, huh?
Yeah. Exactly.
So you've been doing a lot of things. We had you in the program many times. A lot of local people like to see you and hear what you're doing.
Yeah.
So what you've been doing lately?
Well, with the whole situation with the war with Ukraine and Russia, now we've seen that China and Taiwan. So I've foreseen World War III.
Really?
I've foreseen it. There will be a war because ego. I've studied human behavior, and that seems to be one of the biggest problems we have throughout the whole world. We know we need to do the right thing, but ego forces us not to do the right thing. Power and the power struggle and so forth. So I've kind of foresaw that, and so I was focusing on Belize a lot because I bought land in Angola, but I realized Belize is a place that, worst case scenario, I can disappear and just live off the land because it's so fertile. The population size is not big. It's the second largest living barrier reef. You could literally catch fish with your hand. So I was trying to focus on that because I had some issues over there to deal with. So I was mainly focusing on that to some extent and trying to wrap up some loose ends here with with a company that I'm part of. Whereas the other shareholders is not really contributing anymore. So I'm trying to wrap up some loose ends as well. So I've been dealing with that. And also some back taxes in terms of filing. and stuff like that. That's what I've been dealing with for this time now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Belize, when you want to go to Belize, you have to fly via Miami?
Yeah, you go either via Miami or Panama.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's easy enough since we have the flight from Panama
Correct.
direct, right?
With Copa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good thing. But I mean, if you could do it direct or even don't have to overnight, it'd be better because usually you don't catch the connecting flight in Miami because the flights here leave kind of late. If you had a morning flight to get to Miami in time, you could connect to the flight direct. That would be ideal. But nowadays you have Uber jets. So if you get a group of people, at least 4 of you guys, you can actually reach to Miami and just take Uber jets and go down to Belize.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And it comes out
a little cheaper.
Price, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that.
No.
Yeah.
No.
In Belize, they know about St. Martin?
That I don't know. I know a lot of the cultural vibes. Like if you go down there, you hear how they talk.
Yeah.
They talk like us. They talk like Trinidadians. They talk like, it's a whole mixture, a whole melting pot. And I think it was a hidden gem because it was not well known. Now it's well known.
A lot of Americans are going there.
A lot of Americans. And now you have direct flights from LA, Fort Lauderdale, Canada. Before you went there, the airlift was terrible. Now it's like everybody just wants to go there.
Well, you're the first man from St. Martin there. You're the first to stop there. Right?
Yeah, man. I actually want to do a trip, maybe link with a travel agency and then do a trip, take some people over there who interested in maybe doing business as well as even studying over there for the kids and stuff like that. And then we go as a group and then we check it out. So I might consider doing that.
There's a place called Roatan or something like that. That's in Belize, right?
Roatan. That sounds like
area?
Honduras to me.
Was it Honduras?
Yeah, I think it's Honduras, yeah. Honduras is close to Belize as well. You have Guatemala close by, you have Cancun, Mexico, Tulum, Mexico. So it's surrounded.
But it's the only English-speaking
in Central
country
America.
in Central America.
Yeah.
Wow.
Official language is English. Yeah, they do speak Spanish, but the official language is English.
All right, that's good. So at least you feel good there.
Exactly.
That's nice.
Exactly. Doing business is easy because you're speaking in your own mother tongue. The contracts are in English, so it's more, the risks are less. Yeah.
You mentioned just a while ago about World War, and I'm worried too about it. I have children in Europe, and it's so close. The first 2 wars in Europe.
Yeah.
This one might be in the Pacific, with China behaving so aggressive right now.
Yeah.
And you're a guy that know about finances. America is to blame for this in a way. And I tell you, I love America.
Yeah.
But Americans wanted cheap products.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And they went to China.
Yeah.
And now they're getting kicked in the butt with the same China.
Yeah. The sad reality is we don't tend to look at the repercussions of our actions down in the future. We look at things from a now perspective. And I think that comes back to bite America in the foot. Because like when I was growing up, we bought our first Blazer from America, and that Blazer stood around in St. Martin for more than a decade.
Yeah.
Strong, and someone still had it, I think, up to a certain point. So the products that was coming from America was ideal. Now you have a bunch of stuff coming from China that goes in the landfill pretty quick. So it's affordable between brackets, but is it really affordable? Because now you mess up your landfills and et cetera, et cetera. And then you have to ship those things. Shipping pollutes the environment. It pollutes the oceans. So is it really cheaper?
It's amazing because we didn't expect a pandemic.
No.
The last one was, 1917, somewhere there?
Yeah.
And then the pandemic came around. And the other day, a guy was saying that had it not been for Donald Trump, America would have felt it even worse because Donald Trump started this whole process of American companies moving out of China.
Correct.
And when the pandemic came, they realized, hey, but our medication is everything is going.
Even the mask.
Everything.
They had to ship in a whole set of masks from China because they realized, oh my God, we just have to make masks. That was crazy. That's really ridiculous.
So now they're changing all of that.
Yeah. The honest thing, I call it deglobalization. So you have globalization, now it's going the other way to some extent, where people realizing more and more we have to produce at home. What America did smart still, they still was dumb, but what it did smart still was the production of food was kept in California. I think California is the first country in the world that exports a lot. Holland is number 2. So that's one thing they kept was the food. They didn't, but all the other stuff they just decided to outsource.
It's amazing, huh?
Yeah.
Holland is number two.
Number two.
A small little country.
That's what I'm saying. As a small, don't underestimate a small country with vision, proper management of funds or whatever. They can do anything. Holland have a little army. They can say they have F-16 fighter aircraft and stuff like that. I mean, so don't underestimate Holland.
Right, you know, the first Marines in the world came from Holland.
Oh, that I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know. But I know Holland used to be a superpower at one point,
yeah.
huh?
They ruled the oceans
Yeah.
with the West Indian Company in the Far East, and the first country in the world to start the Marines was the Dutch.
Hey, that's amazing. They even had own New York, I understood as well.
New York.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, it's amazing. Even Taiwan that one time.
Yeah.
Can you
that is, and that's what I'm saying. You know, we always try to blame the Dutch or whatever. I studied in Holland, I studied in the States, and studied in England.
Yeah.
And I may not like to live in those places, but I learned from the people.
Yeah.
You know, you learn whatever you can from them, and you embed it in your own way of life. You know, tweak it to that, and you'll do very well, instead of fighting against them.
It's amazing. We are part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands.
Yeah.
We are struggling.
Yeah.
Every time we have a political campaign, all the politicians jump on this bandwagon of agriculture. And then we ask ourselves, you know, you've been to Holland. I've been to Holland many times.
Yeah.
And I drive the countryside and look at all the things that they're doing in agricultural production.
Yeah, amazing.
How come we can't be a part of that?
Because we chose tourism. We chose tourism as our main pillar.
Well, we could do both together.
Of course, the best thing to do is do both. Because then what's going to happen is that what you're producing is the same tourists eating.
Right.
Now we're importing the same food that the tourists are eating. And it's putting pressure on something called our balance of payments. Balance of payments basically means you compare your imports with your outflow. In this case, we export tourism and import everything else. And we always have a deficit in that regard. What saves us, though, we have a lot of people coming to invest here. Say on the capital account is where we're good, but not on the current account. The current account deals with the outflow and the inflow of what's coming in, you know, and that's very bad. That's not doing really well.
Yeah, we just consume.
Yeah, we're consuming, and we hope that our export grows. But, you know, as pandemics happen, as people get tight in terms of salaries or whatever, that there's a luxury. Travel is a luxury at the end of the day. I don't have to travel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I have to eat. You know, I have to drive my vehicle because the States is so big. And so those are what I need. So I don't necessarily have to travel.
But you know what surprised me is that the other day, one of the banks mentioned this, that they had a lot of savings. I was surprised that there's still a large amount of people saving in the banks.
That is true. Because remember, most banks always boast of over liquidity.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, anything good, too good is bad. Because it's always about balance. If you have over liquidity in a banking system, and then you're accepting development funds to come in to assist you, you're going to create even more over liquidity. You understand? But the question is, how do you cycle out some of that over liquidity? Because you need to do something. Because else you're going to have a stagnant economy.
It's happening now,
Currency not flowing is it's like a current. If a current doesn't flow, it doesn't do work, and then you don't get light. So it's the same thing with a currency. You can't have a currency parked, not doing anything for so long. It doesn't make sense.
But do you think the average man understands that?
No. It's not. I mean, if you didn't study take a course in economics and finance, you won't really look at it from that perspective. You know, you look at it, you put money in the bank and it's good. But if you look at Europe right now, they're charging you to keep money in the bank. You have a negative interest rates.
We're not, you know.
We're almost there.
Look,
Technically, we're there. You're right.
And I tell people,
we're there.
We have a foreign exchange of 1%, right?
Yeah, 1%. Yeah.
So if you save dollars in the bank and want to withdraw the dollar, you have to pay 1%.
Correct.
But the bank is not giving you 1% interest on your savings.
No,
it's negative.
It gets worse because if you have that dollars on a current account, the charging you now at least $10 per month for administrative costs and that dollar account. Some banks is more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you have that, plus if you transact with a non-resident or whatever, you incur that 1%. So then it's actually a negative rate as well. Yeah, you're right. Correct.
And it's quite interesting because I brought it up the other day too, and they try to brush it off. They don't want people to realize.
No, because the thing is, you could get at least 1.5% in the States, even if you decide to invest in treasury bonds or whatever the case. So you don't have to keep your money here generating negative returns from that point of view.
Right.
I think some banks even get permission to send excess money overseas to invest in bonds, treasury bonds.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah, because they're considered safe. So they would you have like you could do 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months. So you can stagger your money like that and get a better return than having the money parked there. But you as the person who empowering the bank with that is not getting anything really.
It's amazing when you look at the world today because the euro now is pretty weak.
Like it's cycles again, huh? You have to prepare for cycles.
Yeah.
So I'm not alarmed. It's just okay. How do I take advantage of this at this point in time? You know. So that's what you have to look at.
But it's annoying to me and other people because our neighbors they behave kind of strange, you know. When the euro is weak, they would insist still that you give it to them at.
I know.
You know,
it happened to me yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. It happened to me yesterday. There actually was we went to a restaurant on the friend side for my birthday, and they gave us a bill, and then I saw the dollar bill, the dollar amount and the euro amount. I said, but mom, you notice that they didn't adjust the rate? They had it at 1.10. So I said, mom, it's best to pay cash.
Yeah.
You know, so I pay euro because she had euros with her coincidentally. So we decided just to pay it in euro because we are paying in dollars, we don't lose.
Yeah.
Because right now it's about I think 102, not 110.
Yeah,
so why they charge it 110? I don't know.
Yeah.
So you see, there you can get messed up as well if you're not aware of those things.
Some places 115.
Yeah, they never adjusted it. So they're benefiting by doing that. So you have to be aware of what's going on.
So when you look at what's happening, and you was telling me the last time that I'm going to jump back to Belize, that things went bad and the American government stepped in to solve that.
So you had an American developer came in. He was doing 2 projects. I saw the first project kind of late, and at that time the prices had almost went up by 40%, and that seems to went okay. And then he started another project. So I got involved in that second project at the ground start. It was going pretty good, and then after a while, the developer messed up and started to do a lot of crazy stuff. And the American government realized that, and they stepped in because at the end of the day, it's about reputation as well.
Right.
American person going abroad and messing up in a country, they don't take that too lightly. That's one thing I like about America. So they stepped in now and they're trying to rectify the situation, and they're keeping us abreast. We're allowed to sit in on the hearings remotely and stuff like that. So I was telling people that if I had to invest in China versus America, I'm gonna take America any day because they protect your rights. I don't see that happening in China, you know. And even though people were saying, Ray Dalio was saying, you know, China this, China that, but how do they protect rights is very important to investors. And you can see now, look at Taiwan. Taiwan have their own thing going, and now similar to Ukraine and Russia, they just want to go over and take over Taiwan and do what they want. It's not fair. It's not right. So you can see, so how do we deal with those issues going forward? So I think there will be a war because China is adamant to take over Taiwan.
It's quite interesting because China, you know, they have a lot to lose too in a way.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize that because, like you said earlier, America is still the greatest country in the world, according to me. I think when it comes to real estate, parking your money, it's a very safe country.
Yeah.
Nowhere else can compare.
Well, I won't know about nowhere else because I kind of like Norway. Norway seems to have gotten things pretty decent.
Well, they're under that cloud of the south of Russia right now.
True. And that's part of that's a bit tricky. Yeah.
So that's the only reason why I say America.
I got you.
I say America and Canada in a way because they're not in Europe.
Correct.
If they were outside of Europe, I would say okay.
Yeah, because Norway, to me, Norway is like an outlier. Indeed, if there was not in that range, I feel what you're saying. But how they did it was so important because Norway, about 80%, maybe even more than that, 80%, 85% of your young people own their own home. Now, can you say that for St. Martin? If I did a survey, if I do a survey and ask how many of our young professionals own property in St. Martin, you probably would be shocked with the answer. You know what I mean? I don't own a property in St. Martin because when I was looking to buy, it didn't fit my budget. And like I said, I take emotions out of financing. If it doesn't meet my ratios, if the bank have ratios for me, I have my own ratios.
Yeah.
Like for the bank, they would do like 35% in terms of your salary to qualify for the loan. I do 30%. Yes, so I'm even more conservative than the bank. And so if my ratios are not adding up to whatever, I don't engage. But then when it started making sense to me, like buying property in Angola at $35 a square meter close to a beach, and Belize is like $40 a square meter, and you know that golf course area and whatever, that makes sense to me. You know what I mean? But here's Belvedere is over $100 a square meter.
Can you imagine that?
So I mean, what are we busy with?
I mean, let's go back there. I want to touch on that because
Yeah.
you're right. Young people, in fact, I was speaking to someone last year and they told me the number one issue that young people have right now, they're saying they can't afford to purchase property
Yeah.
or to just buy a house.
Yeah. It's a major problem. Like we had a little symposium type of thing at the university in the turnout. I did it twice. Once with the Housing Foundation and once outside the Housing Foundation. And both times, if you see the number of people, some people the first time was standing all outside because the place was packed. It's to show you that people want homes. They want affordable homes. They just can't afford it. And to me, development must be about the people. That's who you're developing for. If your people can't afford property, can't afford this, can't afford that, and you're talking about all these big buildings being built up over here, but for who?
But some people say, look, that's a free market. You know, it's like in 1980, a square meter in Bel Air, which is an upscale neighborhood, was going for like $25
That's true.
a square meter.
That's true.
Today, you know how much it's going for?
Yeah.
It's over $400-500.
Yep.
And Belvedere, it's over $100, like you just mentioned.
Free market is good to an extent, but you have to look at the size of your population and what they can carry. We look at, for example, America have a treaty with Holland, the Dutch Franco Treaty or whatever, right? But that treaty is not reciprocal. But American person could come in St. Martin and set up without having a problem with resident permits and all those type of things. Unfortunately, we can't go and do the same in the United States. So what you have now, they can take advantage of the low interest rate environment or whatever, leverage that in St. Martin, and we can't compete. We just cannot compete. So I'm saying protectionism to a certain degree is needed. And how do you do that? You allow people to come in, but you build like a safe bridge, like you have like a breakwater, right? So you allow people to come in, but with limitations. You understand? And you still maintain the so-called free market to some extent, but it can't be totally free because of your dynamics. You have to look at your context.
Another thing is that we have this huge influx. In fact, if you look at St. Martin today, we had Hurricane Irma, almost blows off the map. We had a pandemic. We had two major disasters. Okay?
Yeah.
And if you drive around this island now, there's a construction boom.
There's a construction boom, but what scares me though, even on the French side, I'm still seeing a lot of buildings, not only empty, destroyed. They're still seeing tarpaulins. You're seeing the roofs not fixed, and you've seen a lot of that as well. So how do you balance that? All this new development, but then what happens to these old dilapidated buildings? Even I've even seen churches, even in Grand Cas. I think there's a Catholic church that's there. Is like, huh? I mean, if you were collecting tithes and offerings, and you had a building like that, wasn't it insured? I mean, a lot of strange things I'm seeing on the island. It's really strange stuff.
So how we figure that one out? Because here you have this huge construction boom taking place, and at the same time you mentioned, we can still see the effects of Hurricane Irma from 2017.
Yeah, how do we reconcile that?
Yeah.
Now, the part with the development I can understand, because a lot of people want to eventually flee from big countries, the United States, even from China, right? Some people want to, because if China change up, you know what I mean? You have to have your wealth kind of outside of there before the government sees your wealth. At the end of the day, it's a communist country, and they could always change policies and whatever. So those people are not stupid. So what they would do, they would pump their money outside the United States and buy up stuff as well. And it's better to have real estate in a country that kind of protects your real estate or whatever. Right. That's why we've seen the people from Venezuela went and developed Blue Mall. Blue Mall was a sham, but not for them. For us, maybe it looked like a sham, but for them, they at least have a building here, and the money is out of Venezuela. Right. You see? So you have to look at those dynamics as well. It's not always, look, for example, like perfect example. When you go by the movies there, it have this construction that was built. Yeah. If you go and you look at the buildings up there, a lot of them are empty. But yet, right next door, they're building something similar again.
The same man,
But then, how do you explain that? Because most of those units I've seen is nobody living up there.
The same man, one of the richest men in St. Martin, but he's still doing it.
Yeah, but of course, from a tax perspective, you always got to be investing if you don't want to, pay high taxes. Right. I understand that. That's just the nature of the beast.
But what it does, it creates a problem in real estate.
Yeah, it does.
Especially for the local.
It does.
Person.
Yeah, that's why I know you're in real estate, but that's what I was telling, you need to implement the property tax regime. Now you can do it in different ways. You don't have to do it necessarily how it was intended in the beginning. You can tweak it. And most countries have done that. And for me, the reason why I like it is merely not even from a revenue point of view, no, more from a speculation point of view, to prevent the speculation aspect. And then if you want to speculate, no problem. You're gonna pay for it, and then I can use that money now to cross-subsidize for locals now to be able to have affordable housing. That's how you do it. You cross-subsidize it, But it's difficult to discuss those things because people look at it from their point of view.
Well, I'll tell you from my point of view.
Yeah.
It won't work, and the reason why it won't work is something called politicians. And politicians are not interested in your success or mine or your children's future.
Yeah.
They're interested in themselves and how they can get reelected. And the same people that are building all those huge buildings around the island are the ones that finance their campaign.
Oh, true.
So
true. Then we have a problem.
Exactly.
You have a big problem because in the long, and I said it earlier. I said we think short term, but the problem is when you think short term, right? The effects of that short term thinking plays out in the long term, and then we don't like the bitterness of what we get in the long term. Unfortunately, some people might die off by the time the same person who caused the problems, but the kids that are left behind is gonna have the problem. So that's why for me, when I started to look at those things, I have a daughter, and so I have to look at the next couple of years what's gonna happen with her. So that's why I made the moves I did, so that when I die, I can leave something back for her that she can start and have a basis to move forward with her family when I'm gone. And for most of us here in St. Martin, that's not the case.
And I was at a funeral a few years ago speaking with a former managing director of one of the local banks. He said to me, Oral, if your child don't have a place, or you don't have a place to leave for your child in St. Martin, that's it. You're not going to get it.
Correct. It's too late now. It's the price point now is just way too high for them to even entertain it.
And we're already seeing it with the young people complaining that they can't purchase a home.
It's a lot, Oral. It's a lot. I was quite shocked when I went to Housing Foundation, and I realized how many persons want a home and just can't afford it. Cannot afford it. And that's a basic human right, a basic human need rather, basic. And if you can't afford a basic human need, then what our politicians are busy with?
I was told by some people in the banking industry and also those involved in mortgages that the thing is a lot of local people, they will be able to afford it if they didn't have these other loans.
Correct.
And that's another problem.
Yeah, that's something. That's why I came up with the financial literacy program that I have, and even the Housing Foundation was trying to educate the population on how it works, how mortgages work, and when they show them the calculation, what goes into the calculation, and they see that if I didn't have the personal loan, you can qualify for almost, let's say 200-something thousand, and with the personal loan, you only could qualify for 120,000. They were like, what? I say, yeah, you see, but it's all about educating the people and making them understand what's going on. But a lot of them will tell you, okay, but when I go for this, they tell me I can't qualify because the salary is too low. That is true. So then they say, okay, then I'm just going to accept a car loan because then they offer me the car loan. So they take it as an example.
And then so people have vacation loan. That's a crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Marriage loan, wedding loans, all type of loans. I've seen it.
Hey, I tell you something. I took a marriage loan.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
It was 1985 somewhere. Anyway.
Yeah.
I went to the bank. That was ABN Bank at the time.
Oh, that's a while back.
And imagine, ABN was very conservative.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting married, got to go on a little vacation with my wife, honeymoon, and I took a loan for $1,860. And I paid it off when I got back.
But some people don't do that. Yeah. Some people take a loan for $10,000, $12,000 for a wedding because they want to be ballers, and then the pain comes after.
Yeah, I know. And I see your point because I try to live within my means. When most people are going to go for $5,000-$10,000, then they're stuck.
Yeah, but it's not a problem to live. Okay, the thing is, I just tell people, look, if you want to live a certain way, lifestyle, then you have to increase your means then, right, to be able to carry it. So don't try to indeed live within your means, but if you want to live above that, then increase your means. There's more than one way to do that. But if you don't want to do that, right, they tend to end up using credit. You know, because credit is the same. Credit and money is technically the same. They're different, but they spend the same way. Okay?
Yeah.
Because money and credit is what stimulates the economy. But I can create credit easier than I can create money. You understand? Credit is very easy to create. Money, you have to work for it. There's a lag, there's a time lag with money to generate it.
Right.
But the credit, I can create it by the spur of the moment. And that's where the problem comes, because when you create the credit, it doesn't mean that the additional supply of products is there to absorb that increase in credit. So therefore, you get prices going up as well. There's a very link between too much credit in the system. And you can see right now, most world governments, the debt to GDP ratios are above 100. And that is madness, because studies have shown you that once your debt to GDP goes over a certain percentage, anything you do is not going to stimulate growth. You're actually going to decline.
Demand is pretty high.
Yeah, we're pretty high. There was a study done in Barbados that's showing that once you start reaching above 60% debt to GDP, any money that you take on to grow, you're not going to grow. You're actually going to decline.
I don't think we're there yet, though.
I think we're above 60%, huh?
Simradin?
Yeah.
Wow.
Remember, we over 1 billion and I'm talking just about government debt. I'm not even talking about consumer debt.
Okay.
Yes, because when you add on the consumer debt on top of that, it's going to be a real party. Let me put it that way. It's scary.
Because, we in St. Martin, we have this thing we call country. So from October 10th.
Can't carry it though. Can't carry
So
it.
it's 12 years.
Yeah.
But the former Nelson Tillies that came about in 1954, somewhere there, and it was dismantled in 2010, had the debt when it was dismantled of about 6 billion guilders. Now it took us 10 years to get to a billion guilder debt, and now we are 1.5 billion guilders in debt.
You see what happened? Scary. We underestimated a lot of things. And to be honest with you, I think some people went to Holland and signed that deal, not really understanding what they were signing. I think they took a beam for the team.
Didn't have any financial people with them there?
Even so, I think they took a beam for the team, because I think a lot of them didn't really understand the crux of the matter.
Wow.
And by them going along, taking a beam for the team, like that's the word I just used, they only find out now that, hey, we didn't really bargain for what we got here. And I think it's kind of messed up, because a lot of people, for example, their salaries, if you look at the salaries of the MPs, even the ministers to some extent, and compare it to the average person working in society, how are you going to have such a vast gap? You understand? How you want to maintain a salary and the average person in the road, in looking at minimum wage and average salary as a whole, how do you compare that? How do you gauge that?
I'm going to say something I never said before. I've covered politics from 1980. I went back to America and came back, and I left around 1981 again and came back in 83. I've been doing these programs for quite a while. And the thing is that when you look at what's happening on the island, let's get my volume up to it, it's quite interesting, because for St. Martin, right, a lot of politicians, they didn't like the way things were going in the old St. Martin.
Correct.
We had the island territory, and we had a guy named Claude Waddy. He was a wealthy man. So all the politicians, some of them are still there today, used to claim, he's rich, so he's keeping us out of power, because we could not become full-time politicians on that salary. A councilman was getting very little. A commissioner, not much either. So what happened, they were eager to get out of this whole thing, and when they saw the opportunity for 10-10-10 that they did, they set the salary scales for themselves to enrich themselves. So now a member of parliament in 4 years is a millionaire.
Basically,
yeah. Almost a million, but that's a millionaire.
Yeah.
Give or take a little bit. That was the beginning of a big problem for us. And then they told us, don't worry, we're going to have a lot of money, because Curacao is the problem.
But now they have V, London overleg.
Yes.
Right? All of them coming up still in the same.
Exactly.
You break up, but you're still coming together to talk, to fight the motherland, or whatever you want to call it. So what did we really do, though? Because most countries coming together to fight and survive. We break apart.
And then if you look at it, again, I checked my mic here because something seems to be not to go to my microphone. But I'm just double checking it. Yeah. So what happened is that you had all of that,
Yeah.
and then in '95,
Yeah.
they said hurricane and the hurricane said Martin have to pay, or I'm voting my conscience. What is political party members in Parliament in the Nelson cities did, they voted for turnover tax. and again, what they did,
Yeah.
and it's important that
Yeah.
we touch on history.
No,
to see
I'm
where
touching
we
it
are
too. I'm
today.
touching that self.
Because the turnover tax was an austerity measure for a short time.
Correct.
Let's fast forward now
Yeah.
to 2022. It's still there.
Yeah.
Why? Because convenient for the government to keep there. So what we have is all these different problems. And if you go back and look at St. Martin from a financial position, you'll see we've been going downwards for our local people in terms of employment since turnover tax. Okay, and outsiders have been benefiting.
Yeah, that's one. And the hurtful part for me about turnover tax, I find it's a sham, because they don't. If they treat it like how United States treat it, I wouldn't have an issue with it. In other words, the consumer would pay it. We have it now in a way that the business pays it, right? Yeah. And I'll explain why I have a problem with it as well for a number of reasons, but I'm just going to explain one of the reasons. When you file as a business your tax filing and your financial statements or whatever, in there you're not allowed to deduct 100% of the turnover tax as expense. You can only deduct 90% of that.
Right.
When you ask the question about why, because I've paid my turnover tax, is an expense for me as a business. So why am I only allowed to carry 90% of it and not 100%? The same because some people have passed it on to consumers. If that's the way you're thinking, then why don't you just change it over to a turnover tax like how America have it? If you're already thinking that way, you understand? So the logic of thinking for me is stupid. Okay? And then you have another situation. For example, Belize, for example, going to pass a law that allows small to medium enterprises exemptions from I think most of the taxes for 4 years, right? Which makes sense because then you're giving your small entrepreneurs a breathing space to catch themselves. Because we know business is very difficult, right? And most businesses go belly up in the first 2-3 years. So Belize understands that and realizes that and say, okay, we're going to give these small entrepreneurs or whatever 4-year tax break. Now, in my case now, I have a side little business, and now the tax person is giving me a problem with it, saying, okay, I'm not making profit, so to speak. I'm making expenses, so I have a net loss of like sometimes between 5,000 to 7,000 guilders for the year. Now they have a problem with accepting that. So I say, okay, but I don't have a mortgage though. I choose to invest in different ventures that hopefully I get experience. I know what works, what doesn't work, etc., and I learn a lot, right? So I'm willing to sacrifice that. But if you don't want to accept that, then what am I going to do? I'm going to get a mortgage where I can deduct up to 20,007, or I think a little over 20,000 guilders, as opposed to 7,000. What do you prefer? I can do either one. I can do the mortgage, which can benefit even more, as opposed to 7,000 guilders deduction. You understand? Right. So the logic of thinking is amazing.
But they don't really care.
I understand that. But the logic how they think is really stupid.
Wow, it's amazing. Huh?
It's amazing, And so if we don't change that mentality, if we have one of the highest tax systems in I think probably in the world, 34.5% profit tax. Right? And plus you're paying 5%, you have to add in the 5% turnover tax as well, like at the business spaces as well.
Right.
So how do you survive as a small business? Especially if your margin, if you're working on small margins and you don't get the volume amount, you're in trouble as a business.
And if you have your business in your name.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that we have to change, and another thing we need to realize though that there was a guy that I think his name is Ryan Peterson. He was at the government symposium, and I make some notes of what he said. He said he looks at it from a macro point of view, and he said he touched on future financing for development. And the reason why I smiled when he said it, because how are you going to talk about future financing when you're billions in debt? And without Holland forgiving you that debt in terms of telling you, okay, I'm going to wipe off that debt, how can you grow? Because the only way you're going to grow is by borrowing money, right? But like I said, once your debt to GDP goes over a certain threshold, growth is not possible. And he even mentioned that for us to get to where we got to go, we have to be growing at 4%. I don't see St. Martin growing at 4%.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I don't see that. So that's another problem. And he mentioned, like, for example, we are not developing in a static environment. It's very dynamic, and you are running to stand still. So when he said that, I thought about a treadmill. You know, you're on a treadmill and you're exerting all this energy and you're speeding up, but you're staying in one place.
You're not going anywhere.
No, and that's because you have to look at, even though you're doing stuff, other islands are doing stuff as well. So when you think you're going forward, thinkers then take your market share. You know, Nevis take your market share, and they can do that. Santo Domingo, because they have the growth potential, they didn't overdevelop.
Right.
So how do we maneuver around that? Then you have deglobalization coming in, where countries now have to start resolving to producing a lot for themselves. You understand? Because now China is not going to be the one producing a lot for everybody anymore, et cetera, et cetera. How do we deal with all these dynamics? You know, we're still trying to work on basic stuff that should have been in place already, more or less the other things that added to that. So how do we deal with all those dynamics is my question. So I know how I'm dealing with it, but I don't know about the population.
So we live in some very difficult times.
It's wicked times, as my professor would say. These times are very wicked.
Yeah.
You know, and you're getting so many of the problems coming at you from different angles. You know, how do we, troubleshoot? And what I think they're trying to do is they outing fires, not understanding what the source of the fires are. So you always get outing fires, and you're not getting anywhere.
We got to run a quick break, and we're right back. Please, it's right here, and all is live.
In order to know what you want out of life, you need to observe, listen, and try it yourself. Promises, we can make it. If we work together, that's just how it is. Let's stand strong, and serve the land. Working hard as one nation, yes we can. The more difficult it is to achieve, the more satisfying it is to make it. Just believe in us, we'll see you through it all. Oh, never give up. Oh, never give up. We can make it. Never forget those who were there for you. And if you dream big, you might just achieve it. The power to serve, standing for community. OGB, got the power to serve, the power to serve. We got the energy. OGB.
Make use of WIB mobile banking with easy access and direct usage of face recognition, PIN code, or fingerprint. Download WIB mobile banking app and make your transaction from anywhere at any time. For more information, visit wib-bank.net/quick-login.
Mr. Emilio Kalmera is my guest here on the Oral Gibbs Live. We're here to speak with him. And boy, I tell you, I'm working on my microphone here. A little bit, that's all right. So, what else on your mind these days?
Well, one of the things, Orwell, is that we like to talk about the future, and most people can't even imagine the future because they're working to survive. Survival is the nature of the game, so they can only think about tomorrow, and it's unfortunate because if you have kids, you can't think that way. You know what I mean? They say, the scriptures say, a wise man leaves an inheritance for the second and third generation.
Right.
You cannot leave a job for the second and third generation because the job is not really yours. You can't pass on a job to somebody. So I say to have a secure financial future will require entrepreneurship. And the environment in St. Martin is not conducive to entrepreneurship.
Why is that?
Because you have so much red tape. You have the tax situation I talked about. And Belize understand it. Belize understood the memo. Exempting small and medium businesses for 4 years. That gets them up and running. They actually now starting to export now and produce even more now. So they had like an old rice field, a plant that shut down, that reopen it. And now they're doing that now. They're stepping up the cacao, which is chocolate.
Right.
So they understand the dynamics. What are we doing? You understand? Because if tourism falls out, what do we do then?
But let me add this, because
Yeah.
I was at a meeting with a bunch of guys, and one of the guys brought up this issue of taxation.
Yeah.
He said, "Look, I have to pay 35% profit tax, something like that.
34.5.
35.
Yeah.
I have to pay 49.5% income tax because of my tax bracket.
Mm-hmm.
Then he said I have to pay 5% turnover tax.
Mm-hmm.
What's left for me?"
Nothing.
And that's government structure, tax structure on this island.
Yeah. But imagine now if you have to pay the business license, and then this is what some people don't understand,
I
huh?
didn't even mention that.
Yeah, some people didn't understand this, and unfortunately, they learned it the hard way. For example, they wasn't born in St. Martin, so as a sole proprietorship, they still have to pay for the business license if they wasn't born in St. Martin.
Right.
Luckily, if you're born in St. Martin and you set up a sole proprietorship, you don't have to pay for a business license. So let's say you wasn't born in St. Martin, so you pay for the business license. But if you have a restaurant, for example, you have to have an operating license, which is almost the same amount as the business license. And some people didn't get that. You understand? So now they're thinking, at the end of the year, come or the new year, whatever, they only have to pay for the business license. No. You have to pay for the operating license plus the business license. And if you have music, that's a different amount you have to pay. When you add up all of those things, if your business is not generating a certain minimum of at high pricing,
Right.
you're getting problems because, like you said, the 47%, because sole proprietorships fall into the income bracket, where the 47.5 is the highest. You have that. You have your business license. You have the chamber. When you add up all these things, if you're not selling of above a certain amount, you're in trouble.
But I don't want to turn off people, right? I don't want to turn off people at all.
Yeah.
But I'm realistic.
Yeah.
Very realistic.
Yeah.
How can our people who come from, they may be the first in their family
Yeah.
to own a business,
Yeah.
compete with people that are coming from outside,
You can't.
generations of...
You can't. The work mentality of some persons over there is almost like slave-like working mentality. So first of all, if you're going to compete with that, you have to go to that regime. That means your family structure going to have a problem because you're going to have no time for no family or whatever. They probably do it, but our culture was never like that. So how do you adapt to that environment in order to even compete? And you can't compete with them either because they pool, right? Where we not buying in bulk together, they are. You understand? And they, they have these groups and they do what they have to do. We don't do that. So we have a problem from all fronts. And I don't see it happening. Now, entrepreneur for us now is our kids are more into digital world. I can see they compete at that, but PayPal, for example, I can send money out to PayPal, I can't receive it. And the rule is because central bank doesn't allow it, because central bank wants PayPal to open a branch here in order for us to be able to receive funds. But why would PayPal do that? Why would PayPal go through all the trouble for just a small segment? Why would they do that just for the central bank to be in compliant with the money coming in part? You understand? So therefore PayPal does block us from receiving money, which is crazy. Because now, let's say I want to set up a YouTube channel, and then I want to monetize that YouTube channel. YouTube is going to say, wait a minute, your address is St. Martin? Oh, I can't allow that. Because, you know what I mean? So what you have to do now is then go to the States and maybe set up a company in the States, have an address in the States, and then of course you go on clear. But then what that means for St. Martin, end up paying stuff overseas, and so how are you going to really benefit St. Martin?
It's
a lot of things.
Let's say Emilio, Kalmera, for years we talk about tax reform.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Yeah. Well, they say they have a good excuse for that though. They say because they did the policy aspects and they determine now they need to do the data now in order to determine how much to drop things by and what to substitute things by or whatever. I understand that, but it's taking too long. And when it comes to economics, you have windows of opportunities. If you miss windows, right? There may never be a chance to get it back, or not in a cycle that we are in. It might take another 7-year cycle before we get to there, and that by that time we're dead.
Dead?
Yeah, literally, we're dead.
Wow. So, are you optimistic with this whole approach for entrepreneurship for young people?
I'm optimistic. It's a good start with the NRPB or whatever, but you have to be careful that doesn't fail, because I've been through the Cessna program, which was something similar but on a very small scale. I think the maximum at the time was 100,000 guilders you could get as a small entrepreneur. That didn't work because a lot of persons didn't know about the administrative part. People don't understand what an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur have to know every facet of the business, huh? And a lot of people don't know the administrative part, the filing part, and all those type of things. Now, if you're starting small, you have to do everything yourself until you expand. And an entrepreneur is to eventually expand where they just focus on the business and they can remove themselves from the business. That's a true entrepreneur, right? But a lot of us never even get to that stage. We don't even get to the stage of surviving, more or less being able to take ourselves out of the business to allow the business to run without us.
We saw that one with a guy that had a supermarket, didn't go there for a week. When he came, it was empty.
I met a guy personally who had a bar on Front Street, and he happened to leave the bar running with staff, and he went bankrupt because the person was giving the drinks and things to their friends. You understand? So entrepreneurship is hard, huh? It's a hard something. Don't get it twisted, huh? It's really hard to be an entrepreneur. And what we do, we reward them by penalizing them with a stupid tax system.
That needs to be overhauled, and not.
Yeah, it's not conducive to small business. It's not. You know, a big business could absorb it, like a supermarket. I could just carry up the price. And I can do it in such a way that, I remember I'm buying bulk, I'm buying a bunch of products, I can carry up the prices by a little bit for each thing, and I could absorb it.
That's
you know what I mean?
now.
Yeah.
That's what
They don't have a problem. A small business can't afford to do that.
Yeah.
They lose clients.
And then you have, we've seen all these supermarkets opening up by one group of people.
Yeah.
But what we don't realize that they're pulling their resources.
Of course. I mean, look, they say if a donkey allowed me to ride him, I'm going to ride him. So that's the way it is. If no one's going to prevent me from riding the donkey, I'm going to ride the donkey. And that's what's happening.
It's so interesting because remember you said that globalization, Friedman in his book, the world is flat, and that's no longer the case since this whole thing with Ukraine and now China. Yeah. We are living a very dangerous.
Yeah, it's who would have thought I look at trends, but I would never predicted this aspect. I think Ray Dalio to some extent he did, but not everything as well, because Ray Dalio didn't predict technological revolutions though. With how technology now, with technology we can do so much if we embrace it. The thing is for me though, Earl, I always say once a man, twice a child. And I had a time I did a presentation for GB, persons who were going to retirement, and I used that same analogy. I said, once a specialist, twice a generalist. And they asked me, what do you mean by that? So during the presentation, I explained it. Now we're looking at specialization, don't make no sense anymore. Specialization was, I'm going to specialize, and then what I'm not producing myself, I would then buy, right? But what if all these things that I want to buy now is so expensive? So I'm specializing to get money, but that money is not sufficient to even buy the stuff over here. And then I have to look at but if I produce the stuff over here, at least a part of it myself, what does that mean for me? And when you look at it, it comes up much cheaper to plant some of your own food, to get your solar panels, to do this. So now you have to become almost like a generalist, which we were in the past, because I grew up in Angola as a generalist. You know, we grew up in the village, so we had sheep, goat, plants, food, everything, and we just do our own thing as a village. We did everything ourselves. But now we specialize now, and now specialization is causing a problem because now we can't afford to specialize anymore. It's crazy.
But we have to go back to the past.
That's the thing. But now technology allows us to do it. 3D printing. Do I need to buy a lot of stuff from China that can 3D print? That's one. Water, you have machines now taking air and turn it into water. So planting is not a problem. Drought is not an issue. So the question is, how do we pool our funds and invest in technological stuff that can sustain us without having to import too many things from abroad? That's the new revolution. Yeah. And if we're not thinking that, we're in trouble.
So we're going to have to focus on our ability to...
Correct. And I don't think the school systems and everything are teaching that. They're teaching the same specialization methodology, which obviously now has become a bottleneck for us in the world.
Well, we are out of time, Mr. Kalmera. Yeah. Anything else you want to add in closing?
No, so in closing, I want to say the context have changed. I would say the ground beneath us have shifted. And if you don't understand what that means, that when a context change, you have to adapt to the new context. And if we don't do that, you know, I fear the consequences, to be honest. I fear the consequences.
Well, I want to thank you for being my guest, and it's always a pleasure having you in the program. You're a dynamic young man, that really speak the things that our people want to hear. And not only that, we need to really make some serious decisions
We
for
have to,
ourselves
yeah.
and our family.
Yep.
And again, I want to thank you and wish you much success. And maybe one day we can fly over to Belize to say
Yeah,
hello to
I'm
you.
planning it. I'm planning it.
Right?
I'm planning it for sure.
Anyway, thanks a lot, Mr.
Okay,
Emilio.
thanks for having me.
And that's it for now. See you next time right here on Oral Gibbs Live. Until then, take care. Bye.